Hello, news and sports update for Wednesday, February 15th on 1680, The Crow. As search and rescue efforts continue, reports say the death toll in Turkey and Syria has surpassed 41,000, and the World Health Organization has said the greatest concern is in the northwest of Syria. In Vancouver, a community-led initiative is sending thousands of boxes with goods to the victims of the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria earlier. David Nava with more.
Help Turkey Vancouver is a group led by the Turkish community in the Lower Mainland that got together just within hours after the tragedy. With the help of more than 500 volunteers and the Turkish consulate, they are sending around 100 pallets of supplies per week. Sonny Luang, a Richmond resident, found out about this initiative and tells us what motivated him to gather donations from his church.
I think we need to do something. We cannot just pray for them. We need to spread out the news. The situation is so urgent.
Help Turkey Vancouver have received a great amount of donations, but they're asking people to help volunteering packaging all the valuable items. David Nava, 1680, The Crow.
And in Richmond, residents are encouraged to donate whatever they can to better help victims of the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria as well. Reporter Parmveer Kang explains.
The Canadian International Education Assistance Foundation is collecting materials to support those in need in Turkey and Syria. The gathering takes place in the parking lot of the Richmond Curling Centre from February 13th to the 19th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. People are encouraged to donate new or unused warm clothing, blankets, sleeping bags, and diapers. A fundraising dinner will take place at Continental Seafood Restaurant on February 22nd at 6:30 p.m. The CIEAF hope to raise $200,000 with tickets priced at $100 per person and $1,000 per table. The death toll in Turkey and Syria has now surpassed 41,000 and continues to rise. Parmveer Kang, 1680, The Crow.
The BC Ambulance and Emergency Dispatchers have inked a new 3-year contract that will increase on-call wages and offer a mental health benefit as well. The union has been in negotiations with the provincial government since the last deal expired in April of 2022, but the two parties came to an agreement in January, and on Tuesday it was announced that a staggering 96.1% voted in favor. Wages for on-call employees will be raised from $2 per hour to $12, and a $1,000 mental health benefit will also be included to offer counseling support. This deal will cover paramedics and emergency dispatchers until March 31st, 2025. The controversial single cup fee will be disputed Wednesday night. In January of 2022, City Council voted that all businesses must charge a 25-cent cup fee to encourage customers to bring their own reusable cups. The biggest flaw in this bylaw is that the city cannot collect this fee under the Vancouver Charter, and so the businesses are the main beneficiaries because there is no obligation for what they have to do with the extra fee. The ABC party brought this notion to council, and as ABC holds the majority on council, it is likely that the cup fee will be removed. The ABC party has also voted to remove the bike lane from Stanley Park. Reporter Seamus Page has more.
The majority ABC Park Board Council voted 6-1 in favor of getting rid of the temporary bike lane in Stanley Park. Officials say that they are open to the instatement of a dedicated bike lane, however, not everyone is convinced. Park Board Commissioner Tom Digby believes that it will be an extremely expensive endeavor.
The staff said that to do a comprehensive bike lane the way ABC wants to do it in their dream vision would cost between $20 to $50 million.
Digby said that the expected cost to do things the way ABC wants is too expensive, which means it won't get done. Seamus Page, 1680, The Crow.
Local softball players may have a rough season because of a shortage of umpires is making scheduling difficult. Reporter Jacob New investigates.
The softball season is slowly approaching, and the crunch for umpires continues to be an issue for local associations. Aaron Shep, head umpire-in-chief for Surrey Storm Fast Pitch, says that he has no new recruits for his association this year and only one returning umpire from last year's intake.
For 5 diamonds, I have 3 umpires for this year. There's 2 games a night that are going to be missing umpires, and that's frustrating for the teams who are wanting and paying for umpires.
Shep believes several factors are responsible for fewer individuals getting involved, including unrespectful behavior by spectators during games. Jacob New, 1680, The Crow.
And we are now joined live by reporter Jacob New at Westburn Park in Burnaby. Jacob, are games at risk of being canceled with this shortage going on?
Well, Victor, there's definitely some risk, but it mainly falls down on others filling in the gap. The umpire I spoke with, Aaron Shep, mentioned that often in previous years, parents with little to no training often step in behind the plate, which isn't ideal for obvious reasons. But yes, should no one step up, it will be down to single ump crews or no games at all.
And for those that are interested, what is required to become an umpire?
Training is offered by Softball BC, and there are some minor costs to cover entry and those clinics involved. There's also a criminal record check involved for 18 years or older, as the position is involving younger individuals. But with the shortage going on with several associations in Lower Mainland, there's likely some money to be made for the new entrants. Victor?
Thanks, Jacob. March is Fraud Prevention Month, and reporter Dennis Shinolu investigates just how prevalent these scams are.
According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, Canadians lost over $530 million in 2022 alone. Even scarier, the CAFC estimates that only 5% of frauds are actually reported to them. According to the Better Business Bureau, romance scams and sugar dating have become a huge part of this figure with the rise of online opportunity and lowered social stigma of internet romance. According to popular sugar dating service Seeking, they observed a 21% increase in Canadian users in 2021. With the new age of internet freedom, scams and fraud of all kinds are becoming more and more prevalent. Dennis Shinolu, 1680, The Crow.
Moving down to the U.S., California Democrats are protecting gay marriage in the state with a new proposal. Donna Warder has the story.
Assemblymember Evan Lowe says Proposition 8, which banned the state from recognizing same-sex marriages, is still on the books, even though in 2013 the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for same-sex marriages in California, and a 2015 case legalized gay marriage nationwide.
Because of the United States Supreme Court rolling back the protections for reproductive freedom and women with the decision to roll back Roe v. Wade, there was an opinion from one of the justices that indicated that marriage equality could be next.
Jeremy Yancey, who married his husband at San Francisco City Hall on Valentine's Day, says Proposition 8's repeal is overdue.
It's about time, yeah. It's protecting our rights as human beings.
I'm Donna Warder.
The White House has announced there is no indication that the flying objects that were shot out of the sky over the weekend are linked to alleged Chinese spying. First believed to be objects belonging to the People's Republic of China's spying program, the most plausible explanation now is that these objects were tied to commercial or research efforts. However, no debris has been recovered from any of the objects that were shot out of the sky, but investigations continue in Alaska, the Yukon, and Michigan. As much discussion continues around ChatGPT and its impact on students in school, faith leaders are testing AI abilities at writing sermons. Ed Donahue from the Associated Press has more.
Rabbi Joshua Franklin at the Jewish Center of the Hamptons in New York thought he'd give it a try.
I told ChatGPT to write me a sermon in the voice of a rabbi of about 1,000 words.
He quickly realized this technology was no Google search engine, but had the ability to create AI content in a way never seen before. But it's not for him.
So no matter how good ChatGPT can possibly be at describing and using language and describing experiences, it can't really understand spirituality.
Herschel York, professor of Christian preaching at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Kentucky, is telling students there, stay away from ChatGPT. Sermons have to be your own work.
This could be a tool for what I would call lazy preachers.
And Rabbi Franklin told his congregation,
your sermons will be written by me from now on. That was the last one.
I'm Ed Donahue.
It is currently 5 degrees and cloudy in Vancouver with 10-kilometer-mile-an-hour winds. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Welcome back. The Canucks are gearing up to face the New York Rangers tonight at Rogers Arena. Rick Tocchet's team will look to get back in the win column, coming off back-to-back losses to the Red Wings, including a 6-1 loss on Monday night. It was the 25th time this team has surrendered 5 goals or more, and here's the Canucks coach on what the team needs to do better defensively.
That we surrendered, not really. It's been like that all year. It's I thought we chipped away a little bit, but bad habits come back. But you got to take pride in defending. You got to take pride in blocking a shot or getting the puck out and in a stop and start game. You have to have pride.
The Rangers are hoping to extend their 5-game winning streak. Puck drop is scheduled for 7 p.m. in Vancouver. In the NBA last night, the Raptors beat the Magic 123-113 thanks to a massive 30-point night by Jakob Poeltl. Pascal Siakam had 26 points of his own, while Fred VanVleet and Precious Achiuwa both chipped in with double-doubles. Tonight, we have some notable matchups as the top of the West Nuggets welcome Kyrie Irving and the Mavs to Denver. The Cavs and Sixers also tip off tonight and are separated by just 1 game in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And also at the bottom of the East, Detroit Pistons will visit the top of the conference, Boston Celtics. In European soccer news, the Champions League continues now. Chelsea are facing Borussia Dortmund, and Club Brugge are up against Benfica. In yesterday's matches, Canadian Alphonso Davies supplied the assist for Kingsley Coman's game-winning goal, as Bayern beat PSG 1-0 in the first leg of their round of 16 tie. In the other match, Milan brushed aside Spurs 1-0. With the amount of injuries that Tottenham have, it will be quite the uphill battle if Spurs are to advance in the tournament. There's also a midweek Premier League matchup as the top-of-the-table Arsenal welcome Pep Guardiola's Manchester City to the Emirates. The match kicked off at 11:30, and the score from London is currently 1-0 for Man City. CFL free agency began on Tuesday, and it was a busy day across the league. The BC Lions have signed 2-time Grey Cup champion O-lineman Michael Couture, and here is Lions head coach Rick Campbell to offer his thoughts.
Yeah, well, we're excited to get Michael Couture. We think he's a top-rate center in this league. Bonus that he's from here. That wasn't the reason why we did it, but I think it's a bonus that he's from here and signed a 2-year contract, so we're really excited to get him.
You lost a few from your offensive line, but do you see it as being an upgrade with what you brought in?
Yeah, we had to make some choices. I think a lot of players on this team earned pay raises from the way they played last year, and we couldn't do it with everyone. We had to make choices on people. So there were a couple guys that good for them as they got big contracts elsewhere, and they deserve them. So, but we just with the math and the salary cap and everything, we couldn't re-sign everyone. But we feel very fortunate is that we've retained a large core of guys, and they've committed to 2 years, which helps too. So we wanted to retain as many guys as we can, and then we're gonna have to fill in some pieces with some young guys.
It seemed like retaining.
The Lions have also re-signed receiver Dominic Rhymes to a 1-year extension. Quarterback Trevor Harris has landed in Saskatchewan, with Cody Fajardo going to Montreal. And one of the biggest names on the free agency tracker didn't last long, as the reigning Eastern Conference best player is heading west and signing with the Edmonton Elks. That's it for today. I'm Victor Gaucher, and thanks for listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. Now it's time for the comment.
Basketball is one of the most played sports in the world, and the National Basketball Association is a globally popular league. The NBA features 30 teams. When you look at other leagues in North America, the NBA has less teams than the NFL and even the NHL, whose yearly revenue is less than half of the NBA's. By adding more teams to the NBA, it would not only benefit the league with more money from more markets being brought in, the fans, the sport, but the players too. More teams means more landing spots for players looking to get into the league. It's not like there isn't the infrastructure for an NBA expansion. Seattle and Las Vegas have shiny new downtown arenas. Other cities like Vancouver, St. Louis, Nashville, and Pittsburgh have more than capable existing infrastructure and basketball fan bases to host an NBA franchise. Given how much money teams can bring in from international fans of the game, it's a shame that the NBA has just 30 teams. And with the rising concern of CTE in American football, basketball and the NBA will only get bigger. Not only should the NBA look to expand to match the NHL and NFL's 32 teams, but could realistically host teams in up to 40 North American cities. Evan Tate, 1680, The Crow.
It's extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of The Crow Chronicles, a podcast made possible by BCIT Journalism students. I'm Jerison Rashon.
And I'm Melanie Levike. During today's episode, we are going to analyze the evolution of food culture. Vancouver has always been an inventive spot for food, due to many cultural influences. The city can take credit for popular foods such as the California roll, created here by chef Ichiro Masato in the 1980s. This melting pot of culture and evolution took a city that was once only known for French cuisine and nurtured it into a place remembered for culinary diversity.
First, we'll hear from Alexandra Gill, a food critic for the Globe and Mail. Plus, we speak with George Siu, one of the founders of the popular local restaurant Memphis Blues Barbecue House. Prepare for your mouth to water.
To our surprise, there are few food critics in Vancouver. Alexandria Gill is among the most experienced, reviewing restaurants and providing expert food recommendations for Vancouverites looking to experience the city through taste. Here are some of the highlights from our interview with her.
Alexandra started as a food critic in the early 2000s. She recalls the innovation of the city's scene even in its early days.
The scene was so far ahead of the curve. I mean, all of the trends that are commonplace now, farm-to-table cooking, sustainable seafood, farmers markets, drinking local wines and spirits. I mean, that was all happening here in 2001, like 22 years ago, long before it was popular in Toronto.
A new development in Vancouver's food culture, the Michelin Star Guide has recently given stars to restaurants in the city. Alexandra Gill spoke of her thoughts on the news.
I mean, the Michelin Guide was just announced, 2 weeks ago in Vancouver. And the restaurants that were recognized with 1 stars were, very small, a lot of chef-owner restaurants with, farm-to-table menus, a real expression of, of the owner. I mean, they were small and personal and intimate.
The everyday person might believe that being a food critic's job involves using opinions and judging based on personal likes and dislikes. But as Alexandra told us, this is not true.
For me, it's really important to say this isn't about me and it's not about my dislikes. When I'm judging a restaurant, I always consider, what was the intent of the chef? What is this supposed to taste like? What does he want it to taste like? I always try to take myself out of the equation and remember that my preferences don't matter. I'm not important. I'm trying to determine whether the food being prepared is being prepared as the chef intended and as it properly should be.
Alexandria, what do you think is the best kind of food to experience in Vancouver currently?
I mean, we have a lot of great Asian cuisine in Vancouver. That's one thing we do really well, especially Chinese cuisine.
Are there any kind of cuisines to look out for currently gaining traction here?
It took a long time for the restaurants to catch on, but now we have some great plant-based restaurants and products. Blue Heron Creamery, she does some of the best vegan cheeses in the world. They're all aged the way, a real cheese is, using cashew or now lentil-based foundation. Yeah, I think we're really taking off in the vegan scene. Some of those up-and-coming chefs. Elephant, there's a chef called Justin Lee who oversees this very small restaurant called Elephant, sort of in Strathcona, the distillery district. And he's doing some fascinating, foods. It's hard to describe, it's like, but he uses a lot of unsung vegetables and a lot of radicchio, and he makes or chicories, and he makes desserts with chicories because he has to use up all his chicories to help the farmers out. Or he uses a lot of offcuts, like his burger is made with beef hearts. Delicious burger, you wouldn't even know it's made with heart, but it's leaner and he does this sort of because he wants to save the planet. Like, this is his small little contribution to climate change. So he's using unsung animal parts and lesser known vegetables and doing it in a very small scale, very inventive, and a lot of interesting Asian influences in his food, which is part of the whole Vancouver fabric.
What restaurants would you recommend to someone who wants to experience the best that Vancouver has to offer?
Yeah, there are some quintessential restaurants. Like, I often say go to Kinyo Izakaya on Denman Street because that's really what Vancouver does well, that sort of Japanese elevated izakaya. Go there to understand, the origins of it and just have some really great food and some great drinks in a fun little place. I would say go to Burdock & Co. This is one of the restaurants that won a Michelin star last year. I think her cooking epitomizes the Pacific Northwest. She was really responsible in developing a lot of the relationships with the small organic farms that, now service all sorts of farm-to-table restaurants. But, she created those pathways, and she's been very important to our locavore cuisine. She was the first one to do a 100-mile diet. And she's just such a beautiful chef. I mean, her style is, you're always going to find something new and different there with local organic ingredients and new ways of cooking. And she has a very sort of Japanese style way of cooking as well, which is something we do really well here. Regionally minded, locavore, regionally minded or local, locavore, people really do support small local farms here. Asian. We are an Asian city, and we have a very broad, diverse Asian cuisine. Awesome. There's a lot of dedication to healthy living. It isn't not necessarily vegan, but we have lots of fried food. But I mean, sort of our commitments to sustainable seafood, to buy organic produce, to even letting local wineries and natural wines that we grow here now, and eating good local foods. I mean, that's local well, but I think wholesome is a little bit different here.
So after our discussion with Alexandria, there was a bit that we were surprised about, and she told us a lot of things that I would not have assumed about food scene here as someone who lives here. For example, there's actually very few food critics left in the country. In big cities like Toronto, there are actually no food critics. So she considers herself like a dying breed, as her work is very expensive reviewing restaurants, and she really keeps the food reviewing alive here in Vancouver.
Well, I'm also, a thing I was surprised during that interview is that she said something about the city being a capital for vegan cuisine, because I know the city has some famous vegan brands, including Eve's Veggie Dogs and Diet Cheese. And then she also kind of listed a few vegan restaurants that caused the city to become a place for vegan cuisine.
Yes, I was also very interested in the way she talked about being a food critic and how to be unbiased. When I watch TV shows of popular chefs like Gordon Ramsay, they like eat things and then they're like, I don't like this. But she talked about how it's not her personal likes or dislikes, it's about having an open mind. And I think that's very fascinating because the whole point of being a critic is to express your thoughts and feelings, but she does that in a way that doesn't include her personal opinions.
There was the type of restaurants called casual restaurants where you can go inside the restaurant without making a reservation.
I think that the Vancouver food scene is all about the experiences. She talked about how some restaurants are working to save the environment and other restaurants are working to bring back traditional cuisine. And I think that it's very fascinating that all these little experiences are so close together in our area, and we should be grateful to have such diverse foods to try.
And it's also kind of interesting that, Rob Feeney, who was the chef of one of the most famous restaurants in not only the city but also the country, Lumiere's, he left that restaurant because of ownership reasons to actually be the resident chef at the Cactus Club Cafe and turned the food there from being mediocre to be chef quality food.
Yeah, it's great to hear the stories of people who made themselves into a success through their talent. And it's interesting to think that that's happening here on such a large scale and that the restaurant industry is like ever expanding. So talking with Alexandria really opened up my eyes to what I should be trying more and stepping out of my comfort zone.
And hopefully that there'll be more food critics probably in the future.
Yeah, hopefully they don't all stop because it's important to hold the restaurants accountable.
Now, a spotlight on one of those local restaurants in Vancouver. There were a lot to choose from, and we asked them if they are willing to tell the story about the restaurant. The Memphis Blues Barbecue House is considered as the first restaurant in Canada to offer Southern barbecue cuisine. The story of how Southern barbecue came to Vancouver began when Just Desserts founder George Siu and wine instructor Park Hilfinger were at a stopover in Memphis. George explains what happened with their first experience of a pulled pork sandwich.
We had a stopover at an airport, and a lot of flights don't have food on the plane anymore. So we were looking for something to take on the plane, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this big lineup out of this little window, and I realized, oh my God, they're selling pulled pork sandwiches. So we grabbed a couple and we got on a plane. And of course, when we got on the plane, the smell of it, everybody was just like, oh my God, we're getting pulled pork sandwiches. No, you're not. You're getting your peanuts. We're getting pulled pork sandwiches. So we took a bite and we knew right then, okay, we're gonna have to replicate this without bastardizing it. Like, it has to be authentic if we're gonna do this. And that's how it started.
The key of making authentic Memphis barbecue are the equipment and supplies that are used to smoke the meat.
So we decided to take a trip down to the World Barbecue Championships in Memphis back in May. Memphis in May, it's called. I mean, the whole secret was low and slow and use fruit woods. Down there, they use hardwoods like pecan, white oak, things like that is hard to get in Canada. So we ended up using fruit woods, which is like cherry wood, apple wood. Those are fantastic for smoking. And anyway, that's how we got it all going to be as authentic as we could. And at the beginning, when we first opened, pulled pork was the big seller because nobody in Vancouver got pulled pork. Now you see it everywhere on everybody's menu. But they don't do it in a pit. They probably braise it in an oven and they add liquid smoke. We still do it the proper way. We have a giant smoker in every restaurant. We put fruit woods in the back and hardwoods in the back, and we have pork shoulders that we smoke for 14 hours. And we still hand pull our pulled pork every morning when we come in. And I think a lot of places that you see that have pulled pork on the menu, they already come prepared, and all they do is reheat it. Like, you can order it off of a supplier, right? Because lots of companies do that now. Some other barbecue chain has a commissary, and they pre-smoke all their ribs and pulled pork and everything, and they ship it to their restaurants, and all they do is reheat. Whereas in every one of our restaurants, everybody has to cook, has to smoke, has to make the sauces, has to make, rub the meat, order it in, and load it in the pit. and be mindful of the cooking times and everything else. Well, the briskets and the pulled pork are the bigger cuts. They're cooked overnight and they take 14 hours. The ribs and chickens vary depending on the size of the chickens, and the ribs. Because we're dealing with an animal product, it's not like it's a widget. They come in different shapes and sizes in a sense that depending on the time of year too, the feed also affects the fat content on the animals. So that's why you can't just say, oh, it's 4 hours for this, 2 hours for that. You have to still open the pit, look at them, play with it, do all the little tests that you go through to make a perfect load.
So do you have to be there super early to do all this stuff? It sounds like a lot of work.
Prep shift starts anywhere between 6 or 7 in the morning. Sometimes, depending on the day and how busy our catering is, my prep guy will work a graveyard shift. So he'll come in at midnight, just as we're getting ready to leave the night shift. He comes in, we tag out, and he's here all night working. And then the first person in, depending on how heavy the day is, might come in at 7 and take over and just keep going. And then the rest of the staff start coming in, right, early in the morning. So yeah, it is a lot of work, and we still do, all the stores still do their own cooking and smoking. Nothing comes out of a box and just gets served.
So your restaurant has been highly praised with awards. Care to tell us what it was like winning your first award?
It was the Vancouver Magazine Awards, and we had no idea we would win because we were up against Gotham's at the time and a few other big heavyweights, and we won for best meat. And David Eisenstadt, who owns all the kegs, or used to own all the kegs, Highs, and also Gotham's, was very annoyed that we won. He's been into our place and he thought, these guys spent like 90 grand renovating that restaurant. I spent 2.5 million renovating mine. How could you guys have given that award to these guys?
So at its core, what is the main message behind your restaurant?
Not just good food and authentic barbecue, bringing people together.
Great. Thanks, George.
So both of us went to the Memphis Blues Barbecue House, and the food there was actually very authentic.
It was interesting to go visiting after our interview because we got to take a step into what we already knew and with new background information about the restaurant. And so it was really cool to see that in action. The food was super yummy.
Yeah, I had a pulled pork sandwich and it was soft. The barbecue sauce gave it a powerful taste that you could actually put that sauce on anything.
Yeah, I'm not much of a meat eater, but the poutine was really good and the iced tea was also really good. And the waitress was really friendly.
I remember the poutine, actually putting that barbecue sauce on it as well adds even more flavor with the gravy and the cheese.
Yes, and after speaking with George, I knew a lot going into the restaurant. I instantly recognized the giant smoker, so that was kind of fun. And the atmosphere is very nice. The art in there is really nice. The music really takes you into the Memphis Blues spirit.
And the cornbread, which is like a side with most meals in the restaurant, it actually tastes better if you put the sauce on it. There were also 2 other sauces that you can actually use. There's a barbecue sauce that has more smoky flavor, as well as a Carolina mustard that kind of adds tang to some meats.
Yeah, so overall, a really good experience. I would definitely go back when I'm very hungry because the portion sizes are very big. But it was good overall, and it was interesting to go there because that's not the type of place that I think I would go unless someone told me about it.
I'll probably eat the beef brisket next. While on their meals, they put a lot of barbecue sauce on top of the meat. With your poutine, they put a lot of barbecue sauce on top of the fries. For my pulled pork sandwich, they put a lot of sauce inside the sandwich. Even the sides that were included with the sandwich, you can actually put them inside it in case you're running out of any of the toppings in it.
After trying the poutine, which is probably one of my favorite foods, I would definitely be open to trying the other menu items because it's just such an interesting cuisine and you don't get to taste it that much here. So I would definitely be open to trying it again, and I think everyone should give it a try. It's a very country feel, a very authentic feel, and family dining, casual atmosphere that really makes everyone comfortable and ready to eat. You can really see the inspiration, and it's like stepping into Memphis, so it's really cool to see that culture that's developed over the years and see how it made it all the way to Canada, so definitely recommend for a try.
This has been another episode of the Crow Chronicles. We have more stories to tell about British Columbia.
If you have comments and suggestions for us, feel free to contact us through our social media platforms, Twitter at BCIT Journalism and Facebook and Instagram at BCIT News.
You can also contact me through my personal social media accounts. I'm on Twitter at Jerison Rashun.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.